The hamstrings are an often overlooked area of the body when it comes to strengthening in our yoga practice. We tend to do a lot of pretty passive hamstring stretching in yoga and not very much, if any, active hamstring strengthening. And that combination can tend to lead to some pretty weak hamstrings. And also in longtime yogis, it's not uncommon for there to be an experience of sensitivity or pain up at the hamstring attachment up on the sitting bone. So that tends to be a common experience of many longer time yogis. And so a great way to start to remedy this situation is for yoga practitioners to start to actively and intentionally strengthen their hamstrings. And so with that in mind, here are 3 great ways that you can easily sneak hamstring strengthening into the yoga practice that you're already doing. And if you appreciate this content, subscribe so that you can stay up to date on all the newest tips that I share. Hamstring strengthening tip number 1 is long bridge pose. So typically in yoga, when we practice our bridge pose, we use the alignment of heels underneath knees, and we lift up like that. Now that alignment tends to make bridge pose more of a glute-focused asana. But if we instead simply increase the angle at the knee joint by scooting our feet forward and turning our bridge pose into a longer bridge pose, and it can also be helpful to come up onto our heels. Dig our heels down and pull our heels back toward our hips. That can instantly shift the load in bridge pose from mostly on the glutes to more on the hamstrings. So long bridge pose is a great way to start bringing in a sneaky way, some good hamstring strength for yogis. Our second hamstring strengthening tip is to turn any quad stretch into an instant hamstring strengthener. So you may be familiar with just this simple quad stretch. We're in like a low lunge position. We reach back and we pull the heel in toward our sitting bone, which stretches the front of the thigh. So what if instead of using our arm to passively just pull this heel in, what if we try to keep the heel this close to the sitting bone? We try. And then we release the hand and just let the hamstrings do the job of pulling that heel in. This is a great way to build strength in the hamstrings at short range and tends to be very effective. So that is our tip number 2. Turn any quad stretch in yoga into an instant hamstring short range strengthener. Our third hamstring strengthening tip for yogis is something called sliding bridge pose. So you set up for bridge pose like normal, except that you have your feet on a blanket. And then we will simply bridge the hips up for just a traditional bridge pose to start. And then it's helpful to come up onto the heels for this one. And then keeping our hips as high as we can, we simply slide our feet forward nice and slowly. And then from there, you can just lower your hips to the floor and then pull the blanket back in. And to step this one up a little bit, if you feel like you could use more of a challenge, then lift the hips up, keep them up as you slide out, and then keep them up as you slide back in. That part is extra hard. So sliding bridges, a great dynamic way to strengthen and work the hamstrings right in our yoga practice.